Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Playbook. This week's guest is Ryan.maxam. Ryan, glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to come on down this week.
Thank you.
Awesome, man. So let's jump right into it, Ryan. Why don't you share with the audience kind of why real estate? What kind of got the wheels in motion and made you think about becoming a realtor?
Yeah, so actually I, before this, worked at Target. I've been there, 4 years probably, all throughout high school. I'm actually 21 years old, so still down there in age. Actually, when I was working at Target, one thing that I did a lot was, I resold shoes. So I'd buy them, try and make a profit out of them. So I've always had that entrepreneurship mindset.
Yeah.
I was just kind of looking into the investments, things like that, trying to, prepare for the future and everything.
Like using GOAT, StockX, things of that nature?
Things like that, trying to do consignment, all that. So I was like kind of looking into investments, things of that nature, and I saw real estate. So I'm like, literally right there, I signed up for the pre-licensing, and I'm like, you know what, I'll take a whirl at it while I'm in school, trying to figure out what I was wanting to do. And ever since then, I've really enjoyed it, and I've had a passion for it.
Awesome. And are you still in school now while you're doing real estate?
Yeah, so I'm actually one more semester from my associates, and I'm going for my bachelor's in business management.
Awesome, man. That's what I ended up getting from USF back in 04.
Yeah, and actually that's kind of why I'm at University of Arizona, so, being online, it's been very beneficial for me.
Absolutely, man. Well, that's awesome, man. So you kind of had a little bit of customer service experience at Target. What exactly were you kind of working? Checkout, stocking?
So I've been all over the place. Started out with, guest service, cashier, things of that nature. I've kind of moved to the floor, stocking, helping guests as they need something, things like that.
So one thing we try to do is see people kind of coming into real estate, right? Especially somebody as yourself who came in. Usually, people do have success rather quickly. You're an exception where you kind of came on here with us. I think you had 5 pendings within your first 2 months. 2 of them have already closed. And it's rare that you kind of see that type of production, kind of right out the gate. In addition to your age, we usually find that when you have a younger agent, sometimes they're still learning their skills. They're still honing in. But from what I'm gathering is kind of like at Target, the 3 places you went to, is you were already kind of for the past 4 years working on your communication, your interaction, your customer service, which is a lot of what sales is.
Yeah, and one thing that I've kind of honed in on a lot is having a passion for something. So I've always been somebody that always goes to the gym. I have a passion for that, and when I have that passion, I could go at it for multiple hours. I don't think of it as a job, and that's kind of how real estate has been for me. I don't feel like it's a job, especially coming here. Because we were talking before how I used to cold call and stuff. So when I was doing that, I'm like, man, calling people for 4 hours, getting yelled at on the phone and stuff. It was just, it was stressful and nothing was happening. So I'm like, all right, I need to make that change. And ever since then, I've had a huge passion for helping people find that next home.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of cut from the same cloth when it comes from that. When I was getting real estate, trying to, make my way in the beginnings, not knowing how to get business, like, you hear expireds, FSBOs, and things like that. So I tried that. It wasn't my niche per se. So I'm like, man, if this is what real estate is, maybe real estate isn't for me type thing. And because a lot of times, especially back when I started purchasing leads back in 11, it was like, you're the black sheep. Like, nobody's really buying real estate leads back then. What are you doing? You're hurting your ROI and things of that nature. But it's always been something that has worked for me. I kind of like the people reaching out. I got to invest in the marketing, or you're paying referral fees, whatever it is. But there are people who are wanting assistance. I think it's a much warmer conversation. It's more inviting. It's something that obviously I've built my business on, and you're doing now rather quickly as well.
Yeah, for sure. Because, like you said, when I was doing the expired and stuff, I'm like, man, this feels like a job. I don't feel like I'm doing, and just not having to do that now has just been crucial to building the business.
So where did you work? So obviously you came here. You've been with us here at 54 a couple months. Where were you previously prior to 54?
So I was at Century 21 beforehand.
And how long were you with them?
So I was 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
For a while, yeah.
So explain that. So you're going to Century 21. Obviously, you're having to get your own business. What did your day look like then? Was it mostly just prospecting, learning scripts, role playing, things of that nature?
Yeah, so one thing that, I didn't do that I should have done when I came, when I got my license was interviewing multiple brokerages, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I started, that was the first one I saw. It was right next to the Target I was working at. I'm like, I'm going to go there. And they were the first ones to, reach out when I reached out to them. So I'm like, all right, this is it.
Right.
And, yeah, so when I went there, my days would start at 8 a.m. I'd be up at 7, start cold calling at 8 a.m. until noon. And then, in the afternoons, I'm trying to follow up with those people that, I didn't get a hold of. And so a lot of my day was practicing scripts, calling people.
4 hours a day.
Yes. Yeah. And it was stressful, because every call I was getting all sweaty and stuff before I'd call. So it was scary to do.
On the drive over, you're like,
yeah.
just mentally getting prepared.
Yeah. And the couple listing appointments that I did get, I was inexperienced, so I didn't know what to do when I got there. And I think that's kind of where I went wrong per se. Because I didn't, they would throw, something at me and I wouldn't know how to answer it. So I think that not being able to answer those questions for people was kind of why they didn't do it.
Well, you don't have to feel bad. The first listing appointment I ever went on, I didn't know you had to go with a price. So I thought the sellers pick a price.
Yeah.
So you were probably a couple steps ahead of me. Let's talk about that though. So there's some things here that you explain I want to really touch on. So you're waking up at 7, you're in the office by 8, prospecting until noon. Were you disciplined? Was that just kind of like a roundabout, or were you militant about your schedule? Like, this is my working hours, this is when I'm there, and I'm staying to this time?
Yeah, so when I was doing it, when I was starting it, yes, I could, go 8 to 12. I'd take some breaks in between. But once I was not seeing any results from it, it was kind of falling off. I do it for like an hour a day, and then I go down to 30 minutes. And then I'm like, well, I'm only going to prospect, a couple days a week. And then honestly, it was like I'm searching through Indeed looking for other jobs at that point because I'm like, I don't know if this is for me at that point.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on, going, obviously, you definitely always want to say you want to see what your options are, what everybody's offering. But I think also, too, the fact that you kind of went to that environment and you dealt with that rigorous schedule, doing a lot of things that you're uncomfortable with, got you better prepared to handle a different opportunity that most people might not have had without what I would call like a boot camp that you put yourself through, right?
Yeah, 100%. And that's what I was talking to Allison yesterday about. I'm like, I'm more than grateful to come here and, get that lead generation that you guys provide. But I don't think I would appreciate it as much as I do if I hadn't gone through what I had to go through.
Right.
So now I'm like ambitious, ready to go for it. I'm taking as many leads as I possibly can. So yeah, I think it definitely, grounded me, and I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't go back to doing it, but I wouldn't change the past. And it's, it's built me to where I'm at.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times you were doing things where you're uncomfortable, right? At some point, the scripting might have became, deflating a little bit, kind of exhausting if you weren't seeing the results. I could see where that kind of mentally plays a toll. But I'm assuming you were getting better with the scripting. And like you still kind of got over the nerves, the little things you did of getting out there and trying without having too much guidance, the fear of failure, which is a lot of times I think holds agents back, right? They're scared of rejection. They're scared to fail. And you're kind of just peeling back the layers out the gate, even there before you kind of came over here to us, starting with that. And I think that allowed you to get this quick momentum because now you're like, hey, it's part of the process. I know, hey, these opportunities here when I'm getting leads, this isn't the norm, right? If you only came here, people are like, oh, that's every brokerage. You kind of go do your own thing. But you've seen the other side, plus you kind of put yourself through a little hell, being uncomfortable, being demoralized, not wanting to do it, still persevering. So when these opportunities come, I feel you're just kicking in the door, seizing the moment.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, my first sale by owner call, I call him up. I didn't even get the word hello out, and I choked and I hung up on the guy because I was so scared.
I see that a lot, too. I remember doing that, too, where you'll be calling, you're like, I'm hoping for a voicemail, hoping no one picks up, and then they pick up, you're like, click.
Exactly.
So I get it, man. All right, so obviously we talked a little about real estate, talked about your skill set, back when you were, customer service, working your way through Target, I think really helped you excel in communicating with people, then obviously kind of putting yourself through what I consider, your own little boot camp purgatory to kind of get where you're at, really refine yourself in the communication and kind of get out of those jitters where you start, everything's practice, right? So I look at those 3 or 4 months you're putting in your reps, which a lot of agents, don't. So obviously you're now enjoying the fruits of your labor because you're a little bit more prepared. One thing I always like to ask too is obviously you're getting into real estate, you're kind of doing it from an investment standpoint, an entrepreneur, selling shoes, trying to make a couple extra bucks on StockX, whatever it might be. And the wheels are turning, what else can I do? You're in school, real estate pops up, boom, you're going to try it. There's probably this vision you have of all this good glitz and glamour things that real estate's going to bring to you and how wonderful it's going to be. I always like to find out from your perspective, what's the one thing, the biggest thing you did not expect when getting into real estate?
So I'm going to be honest with you, probably the time management. I mean, nobody is telling you to do your job. It's up to you to make the money. It's up to you to reach out to those clients. And that's something that I didn't realize. I thought it was you go into a brokerage, people come to you and you help them out. But you have to go out there and get that business. Nobody's bringing it to you. And that's something that, I've had to get better at was time management, especially being in school. So, working the real estate in the morning and doing school at night. And it's a lot of work, but it's given me drive to see what's coming in the future.
Yeah, one thing that I've seen over the years too, and it's weird because to me it's ironic. I don't think there's a lot of irony and I wouldn't expect it. But I've noticed that the more people have on their plate and the more obligations and responsibilities they have, if they have the passion for everything that they're doing, they are better at time management and way more efficient than people who have less on their plate, right? You look at all these people with time and boom, 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 but a lot of times they're lollygagging around, not as efficient, not sticking to the schedule, and people who are like down to like almost a minute where, hey, I got to be at certain responsibility at a certain time. I'm passionate about getting there. I know this is part of the journey.
Yeah.
Are able to get way more accomplished in a shorter amount of time, even though they have other restrictions or obligations.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm gonna be the first one to say I'm not a morning person. So, I'll start my days now at, 9 a.m., right? But that's just because I'm able to do that. So, I'll get up at 9, but I'll still be working through real estate, working through school, going to the gym until, midnight, 1 a.m. But that's just what works for me. And that's how my time management has become. And, I feel better throughout the day, even though I've got a ton on my plate. I feel 100% better. And even on the days where, nobody is wanting to go do showings and stuff, I'm like, I need something to do. I feel like almost depressed at that point because you don't have anything to do that day. So yeah, I think it's, a great thing to have a lot on my plate personally. It's where I need to be at just to feel accomplished and productive and things like that. But yeah, it helps me get things done throughout the day and makes me feel good. Yeah,
and I remember kind of talking to just different affiliates over the years, and it's like, you have like some cycles where you're like everything's kind of even keel, everything's balanced. You have other markets where you have a lot of free time and you're like, man, I got to get more business. Or you have a time where you're so busy and you're like, I got to free up some time. And I always tell people, don't just keep going, pressing through, do what you want to do, because don't complain about being too busy, because the latter, not being busy, is something where you kind of start to get in your own headspace and worry, where's that business going to come from and how can I grow from here?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's going to be a day where you're going to be able to chill out. So like, taking the days that you're busy, just embracing it and getting through that day, getting through your tasks, just being able to know what you need to do has helped me, so that I know that, one day I will be able to chill out if I were to want to do that. So.
Absolutely. There's going to be a large segment of this audience that, is probably wondering, they're in your situation, right? They're possibly going to school. Maybe they have a job, want to do something more entrepreneurs for themselves. Maybe they got a couple side hustles going, but really maybe want more of like a career rather than just trying to make some money flipping stuff here and there. Just to kind of give them some, and, try to get some more information out of you and do a deeper dive, try to be a little bit more transparent. I'm going to ask a couple questions just about like your work hours, expectations, things like that. So somebody who might be in your situation, who's wanting to achieve your type of production, what does that look like? So the first question I have is, Ryan, typically, for the past couple months, you're coming in, you're kicking ass, you're pinning deals. How many hours a week are you on average, you think, working?
For real estate, I'd say probably about 50 to 60 between the driving, doing contracts, talking to clients. I mean, I start about 9 a.m. and, I'm still talking to clients at 9 p.m. at night. I mean, there's times in between there during the day that, you're not doing real estate, obviously. But I'd say about 50 hours a week would be probably about what I'm doing.
And I think a lot of people who kind of get into real estate, one thing is they think, all right, I'm going to have more control of my own schedule, which means more free time. But really, when you're starting to build a business, you need to work more than the 40. 40 hours a week just isn't going to cut it typically. And that's why I want to ask, because people who are overachievers, high levels of production, it's always in that 50 to 70 range, which it sounds like you're already in. And you might have days where you're enjoying yourself, right? A day at the beach, a day if you go on vacation, doing something like that. But I'm going to guess you're also the type who is not necessarily working every day, 10, 12, 14-hour days. But on the days off, you're still somewhat working, right? Checking emails, texts, voicemails, making sure you get back. It's almost like no days off. Is that fair to say?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I've been at the gym taking phone calls about an offer we put in. So, yeah, but, too, if you put in that work now, work those extra hours now, then you'll be rewarded for that later down in the road. And that's kind of where I have that mindset.
Absolutely, especially at your age, man. I mean, you could definitely have, if you keep going at this rate, depending on how quickly you want to retire, get it done at an early age, or just get, a constant flow of business and have a level of success by 25, 26. I don't necessarily got to kick your feet up and nothing to worry about, but you're going to have a constant flow of business of repeat and referral customers coming back to you to kind of buy and sell homes, where it's going to be a much more, I think, enjoyable life that you can kind of control your own destiny, make your own schedule, and have a lot more flexibility.
Exactly. And I mean, that's kind of where I look at Jordan per se, because, he has a lot of referral business, and that's probably where he gets most of his business. So, in the next couple of years, that's my whole goal, is to get as much referral business and SOI as possible, so that in a few years then I'm just working right off of referral business at that point.
Yeah, he was the same trajectory. He worked leads, grinded hard for about 3 to 5 years, working leads, building the database, and now he's 100% referral. So the only lead he gets is if somebody refers him another deal. So you kind of have the hours put in, you're disciplined to your schedule. It sounds like, a lot of people think, hey, if I don't have a showing or I don't have a client, then I'm going to wait for the phone to ring. But it sounds like you're still proactively working. So if you don't have that business, you're filling the gap with either learning, education, coaching, maybe get advice, trying to improve your skill set, or proactively reaching out to people maybe in your database, or trying to go find people to add to your database in that downtime.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I don't have my active buyers that are wanting to go look at a house, I'm finding people that are in my database that, I haven't reached out to in a little bit, and I'll say, hey, are you still looking? Or send them homes that, met their criteria back then, to see if they are still looking. And I've had people who are like, that's crazy that you reached out, because, we are starting to look again. And I had somebody who's like that actually last week. So that might be a deal right there, just because I reached out to him when I haven't talked to him in a few months.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this too, and this is kind of an off-the-wall question, but it's something that I see from a lot of younger agents. And I don't know if it's something you struggled with or not, but I'm sure a lot of the audience is struggling with it, if they're kind of in a situation similar to yours, or if you did struggle with it, maybe you're not anymore. So a lot of the younger agents that kind of come to us it's almost not like a nervousness or a confidence from skill set. It's a confidence for age, right? I don't have enough life experience. They're intimidated possibly sometimes to talk to clientele, being like, oh, they're not going to want to work with, quote unquote, a kid or, a young adult, whatever you might want to label it. Let me learn a little bit about your psyche, Ryan. When you got in the gate, you're at C21, you're starting off. not from not knowing what to do aspect, right? Obviously, everybody's going to lack confidence, and the best way to get confidence in that aspect is gain the knowledge, know what to say, know how to perform, have all the tools and resources. But a confidence, were you ever worried about your age out in the marketplace?
Oh, 100%. The first listing appointment I did, the guy said, how long you been in the business? Because I know he, saw the age point. What do I say to that? I think I was in the business a month when I got that. So that is definitely something that, I have struggled with a lot in the past. And I still think about that right now. But one thing that I have kind of honed in on is matching the client's energy. Mm-hmm. So, if they're people that are, a little bit older, match their energy. If they're feeling excited, moving down here, ask them questions. Just get them talking to where you're their friend. And, that age difference is not going to be an issue at that point.
Absolutely. I used to call that client mirroring. You're kind of mirroring their tonality, their patterns, almost too picking it. Like I'll notice certain words I use a lot. I'll be using like words. Everybody has like 3 to 5 words you constantly hear. So I call that client mirroring. And it sounds like those are some things that you kind of do to get over what I think a lot of agents struggle with, younger agents, that they struggle to find ways to kind of overcome that. And it's just that constant thought in your head or that voice in your head that kind of sometimes unfortunately derails you, where it's like, hey, how can you overcome this? You just got to get out there and do it. And then it's also one thing that I learned through my career, and it sounds like you're also doing it. So I would just want to make sure it's what I'm kind of hearing, like matching energy. Like when I would be a newer agent and there's a seasoned agent I was going against per se, right? You're not going to win them on stats or sales history or skill or experience. So I was like, what do I got that this other agent has? Well, usually this person's more busy, I have time. Usually, especially if it's an older agent, I probably have more energy. Yeah. So do you use those when you're kind of working with a clientele to kind of use those as selling points on not necessarily a rebuttal if they ask you, but be like, hey man, I'm here, I'm running 8 a.m. to 12 midnight, you can reach me whenever, kind of just letting them know you're available, getting that energy kind of out there. That's going to separate you from possibly a more older established agent who has a strict schedule, probably isn't kind of coming with that same intensity and energy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm trying to show my clients that I'm going to be the hardest worker that they've met. Actually, I won over a buyer client that I went and did a showing for. They're scrolling through Zillow, so they were getting many agents, and they told me, they're like, yeah, we probably have met with 10 other agents, but we're going to go with you. And that was just because that I brought the energy. I matched their energy and felt like we meshed better. And, that was my second deal. So being able to, beat out 10 other agents that probably all had more experience than I did, definitely felt good. And, that's kind of where I've thought about, matching their energy, showing that I'm going to work hard, answering their calls at 10 at night just to show that you're going to be there when they need you.
Yeah, that's kind of like, those are things that's going to definitely set you apart that most aren't. And I mean, like Jordan, I don't know if you've heard him when he kind of presented, but when he was building his business and things he'd do, he was young, didn't have any responsibility or anything. He'd be like, I'm at the bar answering phone calls at 1 a.m. if a lead came in, that kind of type of stuff where nobody else is doing.
Exactly.
And it gives you what I always call is I always look for that degree of separation. How can I even though I might not have all these things now, what can I bring to the table that somebody else isn't to give me that little degree of separation, and then just keep stacking those different things?
Yeah, I mean, because some agents, they're not going to answer you past 6 o'clock at night. They're turning that phone off and they're done for the day.
It might not be the same day.
Exactly, So, yeah, I mean, I've even answered phone calls in the middle of a shift at Target just because I don't, I want those clients to know that I'm still there and I'm not just, we got the house under contract and I'm done with them, moving on to the next. I want to keep them, have a good relationship and build that referral business. And that's kind of where I keep my thought process at, is to just build that referral business.
Awesome, man. So, I've known you for a short period of time, and I can tell not only do you have high energy, or stamina and things of that nature, tonality, I can tell you're excited, passionate, just from, your body language, the way you're enunciating words, certain things like that. But you also have a lot of positive energy. Mm-hmm. So it seems, I'm going to just assume, just based on that, you also have a positive mindset. Are there any things that you do to kind of work in your mindset to not let negative things kind of impact you or steer you off course, or even bring that, what I call negative energy, out in the workplace? Because if a lot of times you got to shut it down, right? If something you get delivered bad news, you still got to put out that positive energy when you're meeting a client for the first time. You can't let that negative energy flow through because you're going to blow your first face-to-face meeting. So are there any tactics or any things you do to kind of protect your mindset and always stay as best in an uplifting, positive mood as you possibly can?
Yeah, I mean, so one thing that, if I have to go meet a client at that point in time, I'm like, all right, what's the worst that can happen, right? This problem is not going to be an issue, a week from now. Even tomorrow, it might not even be an issue. So just keeping that and I always try to think about, God's always going to fix it for you. That it's always going to work out for the better. So that's kind of where I keep my mindset at, and just, moving on to the next activity, because there's always going to be something that's going to open up bigger doors. So that's kind of where I think about, just looking at the positive and moving forward from there.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And I think kind of where you refer to is God's always going to fix it. And I do agree with that, but I also look at it as if I know 100% that I put my best foot forward and have the right intention, there's going to be times where, you got to self-audit yourself and be like, shit, I could have done a better job, and that's part of your growth and part of your development. But if you're just get to a place where if you're putting your best foot forward and you're doing everything you possibly can, you're going to find you got to be at peace with that, because regardless of your performance, sometimes of what you're doing, going above and beyond, knowing you're doing the right job, there's still going to be people who are going to take their day out on you, regardless of if you did everything right, and most times did. So when you're kind of saying, what I'm hearing is like, hey, just let it play its course. Everything's going to be all right. Leave it in kind of God's hands and just kind of move on, where you're not taking it personal or letting it really impact you as an agent, where it's going to kind of spill over in the workplace. Yeah,
and I'm glad you actually brought up that point of, letting it, you've done the best you could. And that's kind of where my thought process is, I've done the best I possibly could at this task. If that's, I know that. And if it's not like the best that could have happened, well, that's a learning experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of where I think about it. And I'm like, that's just something to think about down the road, and, fix that when you get there.
100%, man. So let's shift a little bit to the market. So obviously right now, competitive market, a lot of buyers out there, not that much inventory. You're continuing to work on your skill set, develop your skills, and, become a better agent. What's one thing right now that you're, when you're not kind of working with your clientele, you're investing more time in to ensure a greater level of success with your clients, or to add more clients to your database?
So one thing that I've kind of started doing, and I've seen it a lot, some people do, is literally getting on the MLS and just looking at new listings, looking at expired listings, looking at stats, just watching the market, even talking to the lender just to see, where are interest rates going, what's coming on the market, because I think just having that knowledge, especially, with little experience compared to other people, it definitely helps, because then you kind of sound like you know what you're talking about at that point.
100%. And obviously I think you got to do that. And what I'm kind of going to sum it up by saying is you're kind of just learning the market. You're researching the market, and you're getting the data, so you have the analytics. So when people are asking you questions, you're going to be better informed, better prepared to answer those questions, and you're going to also bring information too, especially if you get really hyper local, start learning, zip codes, communities, areas, things of that nature.
Yeah, and that's something that I've gotten better at, because when I, first started taking leads here, I think it was a Riverview lead, and I'm like, where is Riverview even, Yeah. And now, Manatee is, I'm starting to take Manatee lead just because I want as much business as possible right now. So, honing in on those locations, being able to talk to people, because I had a guy when I was cold calling, it was an expired listing in Wesley Chapel. And he goes, well, what do you think about the new construction down here? Mm-hmm. And I just blanked. I didn't know anything about it. I said, which one? He goes, exactly, and hung up on me. So just, learning the areas, learning the market has definitely been crucial. Being able to talk to people, knowing neighborhoods has just been crucial to me.
Yeah, absolutely. You can never have, enough information, especially when you're perfecting your craft. Mm-hmm. You talked a little bit about, your schedule, your regimen. I know one thing that kept sticking out, school, working out, and then your passion for real estate, work and fitting everything in. How did you initially create what I call like a work-life balance? And I know nobody ever really perfects it, but like what were some of the fundamental grounding pieces you did to kind of create this structure that you're going to thrive in? Like, are you going to the gym at a certain time every day? Obviously, school's a set. You're online, so I don't even know if the classes are set time or you kind of take them as go. But are you kind of fitting everything in your calendar, and you're kind of real militant to your calendar, making sure you get everything done? Kind of, obviously, working with clients, even as you have other obligations, or is it kind of just a different day is going to depend on different activities?
Yeah, so building out a calendar has been crucial, making sure that with school I have what I need to get done on a day so that I'm not missing assignments. So one thing that I do is, real estate is going to be in the morning, obviously going to be in the afternoon, because that's when people are going to want to go see houses. So that's something that I do in the morning. So once I finish with that, I'll go to the gym. If I got to answer any calls at, 8 or 9 at night, I can do that from the gym. It's no problem. And then at night when, I don't have any distractions, I don't have people more than not calling me, I can sit there and concentrate on school. And, that has worked for me. That was something that it took a little while to figure that out, but that's something that I've been doing actually for the past couple of weeks, and it has definitely been very beneficial to me to get everything that I need done.
And now what I'm assuming it has is you've created a routine which you're able to make sure that everything's taken care of because of the habits that, you kind of created during that time, which almost like, rituals now. You're making sure to always do it where I'm assuming like if you go a day, let's just say it gets too busy and for whatever reason, somehow you didn't go to the gym that whole day, you're like, fuck, or shoot, I should have made it to the gym. I didn't make it to the gym today. It kind of eats away at your day because you didn't stick to that schedule that you set out.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I've talked to people and they're like, if I miss even one thing, if I don't do my school, if I don't do my real estate, if I don't go to the gym, you seem weird today. You seem off. And it's just, I have to stick to a schedule. And I know that, with those things, you have to, be flexible and stuff. But having a set schedule that you can look at every day, it just keeps me, focused, ready to complete that task.
Absolutely, man. So last thing I want to do is, obviously you've been there before. You're at a brokerage, newly licensed. So this will be great advice coming from you. But if there's any agent out there who's thinking about getting licensed, any agent out there who maybe is newly licensed but not having the level of success they want to, or maybe it's an agent who's been doing it a while but is in a rut. If you were to share one piece of advice, they're like, hey, give me the one crucial element I need to kind of start to change this thing around or even get started, what would that be?
Yeah, so one thing that I would say is interview multiple brokerages. I mean, that's something that I didn't do when I started that I really should have taken advantage of. And just sitting back and thinking, is this going to be something that I want to do? Is this something that I have a passion for? Because it's something you need a passion for. If you don't have a passion for it, you're not going to be successful. Because with, an hourly job, you're getting paid to be there. But here you have to put in that work. And that's something you have to sit down and talk to yourself about. Like, is this something that I'm going to be passionate about?
And I think, too, it's not even, is it the career, right? But is it the activities? Because before, when you were cold calling, such as I did, that felt more like a job. And I wasn't passionate about it. Where I knew I would have fizzled out if that was the trajectory for what this took to be successful. So it's, I think, also, too, to kind of expand on what you brought up earlier, is not only do you have a passion for the career, but are you doing activities within that career that are going to allow you to thrive because you're enjoying it, or is it feeling like a job, something you have to do?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, because like you said, the cold calling was just not it for me. And, some people enjoy it.
Love it.
But
the most profitable agents I know.
Exactly. But I just can't do it. I was, cold calling and buying leads, and both of those weren't, giving me any business. So it was, I had to make that change. And that's kind of why I say, I'm strong about interviewing multiple brokerages, finding one that, suits your needs.
Absolutely, man. So for the audience, Ryan, for anybody looking to buy or sell in the Tampa Bay area, it could be as south of Sarasota County. I know you cover Manatee County, Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, Polk, all the way up north. As north as Hernando, Citrus County. We're going to share this information on the website, all the socials as well. But what's the best way to get a hold of you? If you could leave the best number to reach you directly for the audience, and then also an email address if they want to reach you by email.
Yeah, so my number is 727-410-0950, and my email is Ryan, ryan.maxam, MAXAM, @54realty.com.
Awesome. So we greatly appreciate you once again taking the time to come on down.
Thank you.
For this week's podcast. And for anybody out there kind of listening, I know there's a lot of agents out there. Maybe you're going through school thinking, hey, what opportunities are out there? I don't want to work a job such as Target or something like that. Is there a career that I can thrive in, make it work with school, and still have more of that entrepreneur mindset? Obviously, here's living proof that you can definitely do that. So, obviously, chase your dreams, follow your goals, and we greatly appreciate you tuning in to another episode of the Real Estate Playbook.